Hello, everyone. I'm Emily Moore from thinkstep-anz. I'm a sustainability practitioner here. I'm really excited to host this next installment in our webinar series. This time we've got Bex from Profile Group talking about how you can unlock more value from your EPDs. So we've got Bex McQueen, who's a sustainability project manager at Profile Group, and joining her will be Chanjief, who is our team lead of LCA at ThinkStep. Before we get started, just a few Zoom housekeeping things. So everyone should be in listen only mode just to make sure the audio quality is good for the webinar recording. If you have any questions or comments during the webinar, you're very much encouraged to post them. We just ask that you post them in that Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, just so that we can keep better track of them than if you posted them in the chat. Just a reminder as well that we would prefer if you do not use AI bots or anything of the sort to record this webinar. The recording will be available on our website in a week or so afterwards. Sweet. So I've got a poll question that I would love to open up to everybody, just about if you have EPDs, how you are currently using them. So that webinar poll question should be popping up on your screens in a moment. Okay. So the question is, how do you use your EPDs? Feel free to select multiple if you feel that quite a few apply to you. So we've got maybe you don't have any EPD yet, and that's fine. Maybe you've gotten EPDs and you've gone through the process, but you haven't really utilized them, or you're not entirely sure how you're meant to use them. They're just collecting some dust on a shelf. Perhaps you do reference them as you need to, such as when you have customer queries or you're going to bid for new projects. Maybe you're more proactive about talking about your EPDs. Maybe you bring it up at conferences and you've trained up your team to know how to talk about EPDs and the results properly. Maybe you're really, really proactive and it's formed a core part of your strategy, or you've actually changed up your processes to reduce the impact of your product from the findings in the EPD. There's a lot of different ways that we can use EPDs. So it looks like we've got a variation of ways that people use them. So really great to see that they see the light of day when going for new projects, and that you proudly talk about them on your websites as well. That's really fantastic. I'll give another couple of seconds for everyone else to answer. It's all anonymous as well, so no worries there. Brilliant. Okay, thank you everyone for participating. I'll close that one now. Yeah, really great to see how people use their EPDs, and hopefully from Bex and Chanjief, you'll learn about new ways to use EPDs so that you can really unlock their value. Cool. So I'll pass over to Chanjief now. He'll talk to us a little bit more about what EPDs are. I think it's loading. Yep, there we go.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Emily. Before going into the benefits of how these EPDs, EPDs have benefited APL, I'll quickly touch upon what's environmental product declarations if someone has little knowledge about that. So environmental product declarations, they are like a nutrition label for food products, which provide the environmental impact profile details of each and individual construction product or any other types of product. So it is based on a life cycle assessment approach, which covers the full life cycle of the product, and science-based, independently verified, built upon international standards, and all of them are publicly and freely available. Today, in this webinar, we're going to talk slightly about on the journey we had with APL. So the journey began in 2021 when we partnered with APL to publish their first EPD for their residential product suites. And by today, we have published almost 4 EPDs for more than 30 products across both their residential and commercial suites. And all these EPDs cover both upstream and downstream manufacturing processes. So in terms of manufacturing processes, these windows and doors are like quite complex in terms of modeling because they involve multiple products, starting from aluminum billet manufacturing, aluminum extrusion, then different types of surface finishing, insulated glass unit manufacturing, which then goes into the final windows and doors, and other hardware components like hinges, doors, door locks, and seals and other sealants, etc., and the final packaging that used to package the windows and doors before they're being shipped or distributed to the construction site across New Zealand and somewhere in Pacific as well. So here we can quickly have a look at the manufacturing process of APL windows and doors, and you can see that involves multiple processes, as I mentioned, and it includes different life cycle stages, starting from material extraction, raw material extraction, to manufacturing and then distribution, and at the end of the life of the product, like how they are being demolished or materials, how they have been recovered in order to feed into the second life of those materials. In terms of the key insights which we gathered from this project, predominantly we focused on quantifying the environmental impacts of these windows and doors, which helped us to identify what are the hotspots. And then we worked with APL to reduce their environmental impacts by addressing some of the key hotspots. And this helped them to reduce risk. And also we investigated how their supply chain is evolving over the time, because we have been working with them for almost 5 years now. So we look at their supply chain partners and see whether there are opportunities where we can do things differently so that they can improve the environmental profile of their products, and also reduce any supply chain related risk and shocks. And obviously, when you reduce risks to the supply chain and environmental impacts, which will have benefits for them to reduce the economic costs of manufacturing, and having this conversation with their upstream and downstream supply chain partners means they have a very strengthened network between their supply chain partners. In addition, they have now established better data collection systems. So I'm pretty sure Bex will talk about that in detail. And as a result of having more EPDs for a range of products, they have now built significant reputation in the market as a leading window and door manufacturer in New Zealand. Thank you. I think Bex, you will take over from here.
Thank you for joining today. As Chanjief said, APL are a New Zealand-based manufacturer of window and door systems, and we work across both residential and commercial markets in New Zealand. For several years, we've been steadily building our sustainability program, and that's focused on improving how we measure, manage, and communicate our environmental impacts. A few years ago, as Chanjief referenced, we started our EPD journey, primarily because we could see where the market was heading, an increasing demand for transparency, for verified product data, and a better understanding of embodied impacts. We've now published 4 EPDs, and at the beginning, we probably saw the EPD itself as the outcome, but what surprised us over time was how valuable the process became internally and how important the communication side became afterwards. So today, I'll share a little bit of information and insights from our experience around what surprised us, what was challenging, how we're using our EPDs now, and why translating the results matters just as much as producing them. So to begin with, we're going to quickly look at why we started. We started to see an increasing demand for credible environmental data across the construction sector. EPDs were becoming more relevant in specification conversations, forming part of tender responses and Green Star discussions. For us, one of the key drivers was wanting product-specific information rather than relying on generic data sets or assumptions. We wanted to better understand our own actual systems, our products, and our impacts. And importantly, we wanted data that external audiences could trust because it had been independently verified. Things that we've learnt along the way. One of the biggest learnings was that developing an EPD was much more than producing a final document. The process itself forces a deeper understanding of your operations, your products, your impacts. With EPDs, I often say that there's nowhere to hide in the data collection process. And this robustness is a great aspect, and we definitely endorse the fully accounted values that are produced in an EPD. Our data collection was definitely larger and more complex than we initially anticipated. And if you don't have an EPD at the moment and you take one thing from this webinar, I'd like you to know that it takes far longer than you think it will. The cross-functional aspect is vital. Your data collection will involve multiple teams: sustainability, operations, procurement, technical teams, suppliers. The tip here is to make sure that your internal people understand the why of this project. Otherwise, your data requests can feel more like a distraction from their BAU. Another thing we learned along the way is that the process reveals things. You start understanding where your impacts actually sit, where your biggest hotspots are, and obviously that builds out a roadmap of where improvement opportunities lie. One of the greatest outcomes for us was actually the increase in internal understanding. The EPD process creates conversations inside the business that probably wouldn't happen otherwise. I just want to touch on the value of verified data. We've found that the third-party verification changes the conversation both internally and externally. Externally, it strengthens trust and credibility in customer and specifier discussions. It's an invaluable mechanism to support marketing claims. But internally, it's equally important. It creates confidence in the numbers, and that allows the data to move beyond reporting and into actual decision-making conversations. It's a classic case of you can't argue with the facts. How are we using our EPDs now that they're published? Again, I'll speak to both the internal and external aspect. Initially, we probably viewed the EPD as primarily an external transparency tool, very much disclosure tool, I guess. But over time, it's become much more useful than that. Externally, we use EPDs in specification conversations, as I've referenced, Green Star discussions, supporting our customers with their tender responses, supporting our sales teams, and strengthening our position with architects, designers, and specifiers in our industry. Increasingly, we're also seeing our EPDs popping up in industry databases, and this is across New Zealand, Australia, and globally, and it's certainly something that we really celebrate and welcome. Internally, there are valuable conversations happening too. Now that the EPD is alive, the EPD feeds into emission reduction conversations, which is probably the biggest aspect of the EPD internally for us. It helps us understand our operational hotspots, helps our team understand where the impacts actually sit, and it just builds a general level of sustainability capability in terms of understanding. Beyond the EPD, in terms of insights, one of the biggest lessons for us has been that producing the data is actually only the first step, and different audiences need different levels of interpretation and context. Architects, fabricators, leadership teams, they're all looking for slightly different insights from exactly the same data set. And while simplification is important, credibility matters just as much. So I think the goal isn't to oversimplify technical results. It's to translate them responsibly so that they can actually support decisions. I also think that the industry is shifting quite quickly, certainly in the years since APL's been on their EPD journey alongside ThinkStep. We've seen the mindset shift from initially being, do you have an EPD? And there was a bit of a tick box element to it. And now, and certainly over the last 12 months, our experience is that the question we get asked increasingly is, what do your EPD results mean? What are your impacts like? And there's a real benchmarking aspect to it. And I think that's where the communication becomes incredibly important. And I do think that benchmarking aspect of this EPD evolution that we've experienced and seen over the last 12 months or more, it's a great motivator for businesses and to improve. And obviously, at the end of the day, that's a huge win for the environment. So yeah, just a reminder that the internal audiences matter just as much when you're thinking about your EPD, and really letting that EPD become a baseline and serve as a roadmap for improvement of those numbers. It's definitely something that you don't want to just update every 5 years and let gather dust. There's so many aspects that you can be kind of using it in day-to-day life. And in closing, for us, the EPD journey has definitely started as a transparency exercise. And as I've mentioned, over time, it's become much more than that. It's helped us better understand our products, our impacts, and the decisions that influence them. Ultimately, that's where the real value sits. It's not just in producing the data, but it's bringing that data to life. It's helping people understand it and use it well. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that, Bex. I'll just take the screen for a moment as we move on to our Q&A segment. So we've got Bex and Chanjief here for the next 12 minutes or so. So if people are interested in asking questions following up from what Bex and Chanjief have been speaking about, or anything else to do with EPDs and how they may be used, please feel free to post them in the Q&A box and I'll moderate them. I might start with a few questions of my own. I'll stop sharing screen so we can see each other's faces, which is always nice. Bex, really great to see how you're seeing there's that change in what people are interested in with EPDs. You know, like you were saying, it was earlier on, it seemed to be more of, do you have an EPD, yes or no? And now it's more actually, what does that mean that you have an EPD, and what are the results, and what is the actual why behind it, not just the what, which I think is it's a big win, really. It's really fantastic to see. I guess going back to when you were talking about what motivated APL Windows to go for EPDs, you've already explained a few of those motivators there. Did you find that as you were going through the quite long process from not having an EPD to having an EPD verified, did you find that there were new motivations popping up for you and sort of new benefits to having EPDs that maybe weren't really obvious at the start but became more obvious as you were working along the project?
Yeah, definitely, Emily. I think for us, the perceived benefit at the outset and probably in the earlier stages of that journey of publishing that first EPD was certainly an external focus. This is sort of a tick box. Well, this will help our customers, but really what came to light, and that aspect is true, and in lots of different ways. There's big external elements to it. But I think what we hadn't anticipated and was such a great surprise was all of the internal benefits that I outlined in my EPD. In my presentation.
Yeah, that's still your EPD, I guess. Yeah. I guess that's the thing, right? Like there's a lot of, I guess, more of that external push for EPDs or more external demand for them, but you don't actually go and think about, oh, how can this actually help us as a business, rather than just responding to the market in that way. So that's really awesome.
Yeah, definitely. What started out was sort of from a customer as a response to market shifts and customer demand really turned into something that's serving us really well as an internal tool as well.
Yeah, beautiful. No, that's great. That's, we love to hear that as well. I think as the people who make EPDs, we love to know that they're being used to their full potential. So it sounds like you've done that, which is really awesome. I've got a question here from Brett, which is asking about if supplied glass is one of your highest GWP inputs, how can you have those conversations with suppliers to reduce their intensity? So you've identified hotspots in your business. Like, how do you go and talk to third parties about making a change?
Yeah, glass is one of the biggest contributors, and certainly for us, like a lot of manufacturing businesses, the bulk of our emissions footprint sits upstream in our scope 3. Sorry, was the question around how we speak to our suppliers about those?
Yeah. So I guess if they need to make changes to the way that they manufacture glass, for example, like how does that look?
No, I think it's a case of because of the growing prevalence in EPDs and businesses having an awareness of their footprint, there is that upwards flow to suppliers to rise to that demand as well. And certainly with the glass as well, we've seen a lot of our suppliers and have been in the same timeline as us and getting EPDs concurrently to us as well. So there's that real kind of upstream visibility that we're starting to see. And so I think the fact that we're seeing EPDs coming up in that upstream is that we're able to kind of make procurement decisions based off that as well.
Yeah, perfect. So when you're looking at who to go to for, materials, like if a supplier has an EPD for their own materials, or if they're, taking visible action, that would maybe be a deciding factor for who you, procure things from. So, cool.
Quick point to add to what Bex mentioned. So during this project, we're also able to influence some of our suppliers and then downstream users, and they end up publishing their own EPDs for the same client, because when we ask for environmental credentials, when they don't have that information, then they reach out to us or some other consultants to prepare and provide their own EPDs. So what we have done is we have not only done the EPDs for APL, but APL has influenced their upstream and downstream suppliers as well as users to develop their environmental credentials towards decarbonizing the entire supply chain.
Yeah, there you go. So it seems like if you're the one who creates an EPD, there's all these amazing flow-on effects to other people within that supply chain. It's not just an isolated exercise. It brings other people on board as well, directly or indirectly. So yeah.
And sorry, and further to Chanjief's point is that when you start getting upstream and downstream, it also means that the data in everyone in that production cycles, data becomes actual data rather than generic or assumed data. And so it means that in our opinion, that the data is a lot more meaningful and accurate.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like a win-win for everyone, really. So it's great. Sort of on that, I had a question about you mentioned that the data from the EPD is used in industry databases now as well. This may be obvious to people, it may not be, but I'll just ask. Is that something that if you wanted that data to be used for the benefit of the industry, that you would have to opt in for that? Or does EPD Australasia or any other platform, is the data just because it's published on their website, people can just take that data as they want to? Like it's not an extra step for you guys to make that available? Is that sort of how it works?
That's such a good question. It's actually a mix of both. So we have seen some databases which I think pull all of their data from EPD databases, which is great. There are other databases that we're aware of where we've had to sort of push and submit our EPD for inclusion. So yeah, it's a mix of both.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. No, that's genuinely interesting. So I guess if there's anyone, in the call who wants their EPDs to be used, for the benefit of everyone else, then just being aware that there's different ways that can happen. It's not necessarily automatically. So there you go. That's interesting. Yeah, thanks, Bex. I learned something there, so that's really nice. I think I'll ask another question. Sorry, I have a lot of questions for you specifically, Bex, as well. If you were to give advice to anyone, there's quite a few people here who have EPDs but aren't necessarily sure how to use them internally or externally. Would you have any advice for where people can start? Like if there's like a logical way to start using your EPD, or if it sort of depends on your intent for use, just to give people, maybe they can leave this webinar and know, okay, I'm going to go speak to this person, or I'm going to get this thing done.
Yeah, I think the published report can be quite daunting. It's 100 plus pages depending on your specific EPD. But I think we've found a lot of value, and a little plug for ThinkStep and ThinkStep here is that we found a lot of value in having guidance from Chanjief and the team to get us started initially interpreting some of our results. There's certain paragraphs in your EPD that will identify your hotspots, so that's a good place to start. Yeah, I think in our experience, we've it's been a little bit of a mix of self-taught mining our EPD for information. Some of it's come from our industry, architects, specifiers asking specific questions and kind of learning along the way which bits we need to better translate or highlight, and certainly that support piece from ThinkStep as well has been really valuable for us.
Yeah, perfect. There you go. Okay, so people may be a bit cheeky, but if they want, they can talk to us or any other LCA, expert for how they can get started with their EPD. Or like you're saying, that's something that a lot of people might have picked up already throughout the process. So yeah, that's really encouraging.
Probably a final word of advice on that to follow that up would be, don't let the length of the report be an obstacle. But take a bite of the elephant, read it in chunks, but you'll definitely find a lot of value in there to go and get started with. So you don't need a consultant either. You can get started on your own, but certainly don't let the length and the technical aspect of the published report be something that means that you won't become familiar with it. There's a lot of gold in there.
Awesome. Great advice. Great. We have a clarification here about just going back to the industry database. So EPD Australasia publish on their website, also load the EPD into the international portal, Eco platform pull data from international EPD and publish them on the Eco platform. So I guess there's some clarification there for those who are interested. So thank you very much. Great. I think I will jump over to the slides and then wrap it up. So thank you very much for your time in the Q&A and for answering those questions. Cool. So before we end, we just want to say a really big thank you to Bex and Chanjief for spending time today talking about this project and how you can unlock more value from your EPDs. Really hope that you've all taken away something from this. And if you're one of the people who identified as having EPDs but not entirely sure how to use them internally or externally, hopefully now you know how you can get started with that. A few things coming up. So we've got another webinar coming up later this month, also about EPDs with New Zealand Steel and EPD Australasia, and Jeff Vick is our technical director as well. So not one to miss, and you can register for that on our website now. We have our MCI Pro calculator for all of you who are looking into understanding the circularity of your products or services. This is a new-ish tool from us. So if you want to learn more about that or get access to the calculator, you can find that on our website now as well. For those of you who are preparing for climate-related disclosures, we have our new disclosure kit offering, which helps walk you through the process to get those disclosures prepared for audit. Cool. So that's everything from me. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
We have many more webinar replays on a whole host of sustainability topics. You can check them out on our website and our YouTube channel.